Okay, class, what I wanted to do is talk about the paper that is due this week. It's your first paper based upon comparing something in the Gospels, particularly Luke and Mark's account. You can check out Matthew's account as well. But if you look at it, let me just explain. Well, first of all, just technically, it's 800 to 1,000 words, which isn't necessarily too large of a paper. Probably looking at about 4 pages, maybe 5 pages at the max, anywhere from 200 to 250 words per page when you type up a paper, double space, 12-point font. So 800 to 1,000 words is about 4 to 5 pages, and do include a cover page, and do include a works cited or bibliography page to list sources that you quote or reference in your paper. But just to say, the topic is we're looking at what's called the story of the sinful woman who anoints Jesus's feet. And this is in Luke 7:36 to 50. So chapter 7, verses 36 to 50. And it appears to be perhaps a substantially reworked version of a story told in Mark 14, verses 3 to 9. And you can see Matthew 26, verses 6 to 13. Okay, so there's a story told in Luke 7, and it looks to be a reworked version of what Mark tells, and we think Mark was the first gospel. And so what you're going to do is write an essay in which you make an argument to answer the following question. How has Luke reshaped Mark's version of the story to fit Luke's distinct context and theological perspective? So what we've talked about is, though there's this kind of very similar thrust in the Gospels, or particularly the synoptic Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, there's this very similar story, and really across the four Gospels in many ways, but definitely Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Very similar story, chronology in many ways, based in these three Gospel accounts. But they each have their own perspective that they're trying. It's a didactic or a teaching approach. Or think of it like taking a picture with a camera and taking a picture from this angle and then moving over here and taking from this angle and then going all the way around from the back and looking and taking a picture. So different camera angles, different perspectives. So Luke is trying to emphasize some things different from what Mark as well as Matthew are emphasizing. And so how may Luke have taken that, or probably Mark's initial version of this story, to shape it in a way for his context and his theological perspective? So remember, you'll do well to research and be attentive to some of the primary reasons Luke wrote his gospel account, and Mark's as well. Okay, and so why is Luke emphasizing things? So you'll need to be, I know it's easy in this world today to start with Google, and you definitely don't want to drive to the CBU campus and walk into a thing called the library that I think we may see as a bit outdated. And I understand that on some level. You can dip into our texts with the Johnson book. You can look at the study Bible is a place to start, but there's some other sources out there that tell you, kind of put on a radar, why is Luke writing? Okay, and Luke is, and I'll give you a little hint, Luke is very interested in the poor and marginalized. And so when you read Luke's account and Mark's account, there's more details in Luke's, and there's different words, different adjectives used to describe it, connects into a lot of his themes. And so Mark wrote the first account, but Luke may have reworked this original account to teach something particularly important in his own writing. So although you'll want to compare and contrast Mark's version with Luke's version, this should not simply be a listing of, well, this is different in Luke from Mark, and this is different in Mark from Luke, and this is where they're the same. Okay? You're not just listing out similarities and differences. You're looking at, why is Luke writing and why he may have told the story the way he did. Okay? Why did that photographer over here take the picture from this angle, and this other photographer turned and thought, I want to take a picture from this angle on this side? So what's Luke doing? Okay, why is he doing it? And I've given you a hint to kind of think through and look around for some stuff on Luke connecting to the poor and marginalized, and that being a big thesis in his gospel. Okay, so and let me just say this: even if you think the two stories represent two different accounts, Luke and Mark represent two different. You still need to engage in the comparison and contrasting and why Luke is doing what he's doing, okay? I've uploaded a couple of docs into Stella to see just some general essay guidelines, but also a paper writing rubric that really gets into how you'll be graded in this class for your essays. And particularly, there are 4 areas that I'm looking at: your organization, your content, your sources, and the form. And you can see the percentages and stuff like that. So reach out with any questions, reach out with any concerns, but I think that should be good in just kind of introducing this first essay. And it is due Saturday night by 11:59 p.m. All right, thank you.